goods train is the humble member of the railway family. To it is attached none of the romance that surrounds the limited expresses. It is sidetracked to allow passenger traffic to pass it. Yet 2/3 of the department's revenue comes from goods traffic. 10 million tons are hauled annually. Where does all this traffic come from? How does it find its way to the right train? How does it reach its correct destination? In the scheme of things, many play a part, and not least amongst them is the shunter. Our purpose is mainly to examine his part, but to appreciate its full significance, we must first glance briefly at the organization behind freight operation. Wherever the railway touches centres of population, there will we find its sidings and its goods sheds, all hives of activity in both the town and the country. The twin ribbons of steel go down to the sides of the ships, and railway wagons wait to receive the wealth of other lands, or to discharge into their empty holds our wealth in exchange. Transport, that vital link between place and place, country and country, that gives us our standard of living in this our modern age, that transfers the goods by which we live from their place of origin to the place where they are most desired. Transport that produces nothing tangible, yet forms half the cost of all commodities as it converts the unwanted surplus of one locality into the eagerly awaited requirements of another. The operation of a railway system demands a vast and complicated organization. We will take you behind the scenes into the offices of a district traffic manager. There we find the wagon supply officer and his staff collating the information of traffic offering and empty wagons available or required as it is telegraphed or telephoned from stations near and far. The information assembled, a train running officer plots on his daily diagrams the trains necessary to shift this traffic and coordinates them with the regular services. While the train control operator, seated at his panel, watches the progress of trains in motion from the spotlights on his board, starting and stopping them or diverting them to crossing loops at distant stations by the mere flick of his finger. The daily program arranged, the information is passed to all concerned, and the yardmaster instructs his shunters so far as his own locality is affected. The shunting gang picks up its engine and discusses the job with those other two equally important men, the driver and the fireman. They speak now in ordinary language, but once the job gets underway, speech will cease, and between them will pass only a strange deaf and dumb language of scarcely a dozen syllables. This language we will teach you. Shunters work usually in gangs of 3, one to direct the movements, one to manipulate the points, and the third to catch the brakes of the moving vehicles as they are kicked or slipped to the various roads. On the leading shunter falls the responsibility of deciding how the shunting shall proceed, for his is the task of sorting the loaded and empty wagons so that all reach their several destinations by the proper trains. This is called marshalling. On a shunting ladder, a long straight road with numerous side roads diverging from it, the shunter kicks his wagons one by one or in groups, separating them out so that when the job is complete, they may be reassembled in orderly sequence for attaching to trains. Wagons are always placed on trains in station order. As the train proceeds, the wagons to be put off at intermediate stations are thus together and at the front. This is the main portion of the shunter's work. It demands experience, a level head, and physical fitness. Every movement has to be predetermined. To bring about the required sequence in the fewest possible moves is the hallmark of good shunting. Always the shunter works against time. A misplaced wagon may cost many minutes to rectify and perhaps delay a waiting train. In marshalling, the first step is to ascertain the destination of all wagons from the cards attached to them by the member supervising loading. The destination is chalked on the sides of the wagons to be marshalled, and from this the shunter knows exactly where to place them, so that at the end he is able to reassemble them in the desired order, north in one place, south in another, and all the wagons for each train in the most convenient order for expeditious handling, both en route and at the destination station. When the wagons are correctly marshalled for one train, the shunting engine places them on the departure road. The number taker compiles a list and calculates the tonnage, for the total weight of the train must not exceed the engine power available. The waybills for each loaded wagon must also be sorted out for dispatch with the train. Similarly, the guard inspects his load and records the data necessary to compile his running sheet. Finally, he receives his train list and waybills from the number taker. The train engine comes on. The train examiner inspects the vehicles for mechanical defects and tests the brakes. In the signal box, the signalman receives authority to dispatch the train. He places the starting signal to proceed. The guard gives right away, and with a blast of the whistle, the driver opens the regulator, the engine takes up the load, and several hundred tons of goods move off to meet the wants of you and me. Yes, the shunter is a key man in railway operation. By day and by night, in sunshine and in rain, his work goes on. And all the time, as he turns his points, signals his movements, and chases the brakes of moving vehicles, he exposes himself to considerable risk unless safety first principles govern his every action. This is no work for the novice. So, for you, the man who will someday be a shunter, or who includes some shunting in his daily routine, this film has been made. It will show you how the shunter works, what he has to do, and more important still, what he must avoid. Watch these shunters at work, copy their example, and above all, like them, be careful. The shunter's clothing is important. A flapping coat is a constant source of danger. The button should be intact and the coat kept securely buttoned. Of vital importance are the boots. They should be sound, comfortable, and not too heavy, for the shunter is on the move continuously. Green hide soles and metal protectors should not be used. This shunter should keep his coat buttoned. See how it flaps and how finally it becomes caught between two buffers. An unexpected movement of the wagons might now endanger his life. By day, the shunter conveys his signals to the driver by the movement of his arms. All signals must be given clearly and distinctly, and where possible, on the driver's side. These are the signals commonly used in a shunting yard. Stop short. Come towards the signal. Stop. Move away from the signal. Stop. Pull out. Stop. Danger. A short kick. Stop. A long kick. Stop. The slip signal. Cut off. Ease up. The signal from one shunter to another to reverse the points. Here we see shunters using some of these signals in routine shunting movements. By night, the shunter uses a hand lamp to signal his movements. The lamp shows 3 lights, white, red, and green. The red glass is always placed on the right-hand side of the inner case as the lamp is held normally in the shunter's hand. The green glass is placed on the left-hand side. The colours are controlled by means of the 3-prong trigger at the top of the lamp. When held in the right hand, a flick of the index finger changes the light from white to red. The thumb is used to change the light from white to green. If the lamp is held in the left hand, the procedure must be reversed. When giving a signal to the rear, reverse the lamp in the hand. Do not attempt to twist the wrist or the signal will not be clear to the driver. Learn to operate the colours, holding the lamp in both positions and in either hand. When walking in the yard, do not swing the lamp about or it might be mistaken for a signal. Always carry it against the leg. Waved across the body, the light means come towards the signal, at normal speed if white, and slowly if green. Keep the lamp face square so that the driver sees the light continuously. If the wrist is allowed to rotate, this is what the driver will see, a flashing light and an indistinct signal. Moved up and down, the light means go away from the signal, again at normal speed if white and slowly if green. Keep the lamp face square. Lifting the bottom of the lamp as it is swung forwards and upwards produces an indistinct flashing light. Speed is regulated by the amount of swing imparted to the signal. As the swing is varied, the driver will vary his speed accordingly. The devices that enable engines or vehicles to move from one road to another are called points, and the short tapered section of rail that guide the wheels onto the diverging road are called switches. Points may be operated from a signal box by motors or other means, or they may be operated by hand levers. In constricted areas, the levers are sometimes placed flush with the ground to prevent interference. In shunting yards, however, weighted hand levers are generally used. The switches are moved by throwing the lever over from one side to the other, but to do this it must first be pulled out slightly to allow it to clear the frame. If the lever is not pulled out, the points can still be reversed, but the lever cannot be thrown over, and it returns to its original position as soon as it is released. These holds permit the lever being strapped in one position. The points can then be reversed only so long as the lever is held. Dust or dirt may prevent the weighted lever from completely closing the points. Always keep your eye open for levers in a cocked up position and restore them immediately. Half-closed points can cause a derailment. Here we see how half-closed points have caused the leading wheels of a wagon to take one road and the trailing wheels the other. Turning the points between the axles of a wagon will produce the same result. Points are referred to as facing or trailing according to the direction of movement over them. Here, the movement is in the facing direction. Notice how the levers are lying away from the direction of travel, indicating that the points are set for the straight road. When moving in the reverse direction, the points are said to be trailing. As set for the straight road, the levers lie towards the oncoming engine. If trailing points are set against an oncoming vehicle, the leading wheels force the switches across and the weighted lever restores them to the original position as soon as the vehicle has passed. No harm is done if the points are hand-operated, but if the points are interlocked, the movement of the switches will damage the connecting rods. Here, shunters are operating hand points in routine shunting movements. This shunter is about to split. Notice how he not only throws the lever over, but also holds it down momentarily to prevent rebound, which could open the points slightly in the face of the oncoming wagons. This is a slip shunt. Again, notice the firm and deliberate movement with which the shunter reverses the points. Points may also be operated by spring-controlled levers. Here the operation is the same for either setting. The lever is simply pulled and a spring operates the switches, the lever returning to its normal position. A further pull of the lever restores the points to their original setting. With this type, it is impossible to tell how the points are lying by observing the lever. The advantage is that the action is more positive. There is no danger of rebound. Watch this shunter jumping off the wagon. Notice how he passes the lever before dismounting. Never jump off immediately in front of a points lever. When vehicles pass over spring points in the trailing direction, the switches remain reversed, unlike the weighted lever type, which return to their original position as soon as the vehicle has passed. Vehicles are coupled by buffers which carry a hook at one end and a pin at the other. The parts are the buffer, the coupling pin, the bridle, the chain securing the coupling pin, the Westinghouse brake hose, side chains, Westinghouse brake tap, and the dummy for attaching to the Westinghouse brake hose when it is uncoupled. Watch the operation of coupling and always follow the same sequence. It will save time and make the job easier. Start at the far side and work towards the near. Follow the reverse procedure in uncoupling. Again, notice the economy of movement. When buffers come together on a curved road, it may be that they do not fall into alignment. Do not attempt to force them into position with the hand or foot, as they are under compression, and this may cause the hook to spring back. Ease the engine away to release the compression. Attach the side chains and pull out onto the straight road. The buffers will then fall into alignment naturally. Alliance automatic couplings are standard equipment on express cars and electrical multiple units. Coupling is entirely automatic. As the jaws close round each other in the act of coupling, an internal locking block falls, securing the jaws in the locked position. Uncoupling is effected by removing the release coupling lever from its bracket and swinging it upwards. This lifts the lock lifter, which in turn lifts the internal locking block and allows the jaws to pull apart. The lock lifter is the small white pin seen below the buffer. When coupling is secure, the lock lifter falls to its lowest position and the release coupling rod, restored to its bracket, holds all secure. After coupling, the lock lifter must be examined. If it projects its full 5.5 inches below the buffer, the coupling has been effected securely. An adapter link is provided to couple an automatic coupler to an ordinary buffer. This is inserted in the automatic coupler, and the coupling pin is then passed through the buffer and the link. Cars equipped with steam heating are fitted with a hose that touches the ground when uncoupled. Always hang this hose on the chain provided and attach the dummy. A dragging hose can damage the mechanism of interlocked points. This is the standard handbrake. It is operated by a ratchet and pawl attached to the brake lever, which sits in a crotch. To apply the brake, lift the lever from the crotch, force it down and engage the pawl. To release, apply pressure, disengage the pawl and restore the lever to its crotch. Worn brake blocks will cause the lug at the end of the ratchet to contact the pawl frame. This can jam the thumb. Always keep your thumb well away from the pawl frame, and if you find a wagon in this condition, chalk it for repairs. A white patch is painted on each vehicle on the same side but at the opposite end from the brake. A white patch on an approaching vehicle indicates that the brake is on that side but at the opposite end. If no white patch is visible, the brake is at the approaching end and on the shunter's left-hand side as he faces the oncoming wagon. When operating the handbrake, do not place the hand inside the grip. The brake is under tension and may rebound when the pawl is released. Always grasp the handle outside. When braking a wagon after it has been kicked off, reduce the initial speed and then regulate the pressure so that the wagon drifts quietly to the required position. When passing in front of standing wagons, always give yourself plenty of room. This will enable you to get clear should the wagons move unexpectedly. Always step over points and intersections. It is easy to get the heel trapped, and there might be an engine approaching. It is sometimes difficult to release a trapped heel. Do not squeeze between narrowly separated buffers. Always step over them. Do not attempt to step onto the cowcatcher of a moving engine if the driver has the cylinder cocks open. The step is small and you might miss it if your vision is obscured by steam. Take a firm grip of the handrail and watch carefully where you are stepping. Remember, use the handrail. Keep the feet squarely on the step, and if the engine is moving quickly, do not attempt to step on at all. The step is not big enough to hold 2 men safely. Only 1 man should ride on each step. Stepping from one side of the cowcatcher to the other is a dangerous practice. Avoid it at all times and on all occasions. If you are riding on a flat-topped wagon, stand in the middle of it. If you are standing at one end and should lose your balance, you might go down between the wagons. When going in between wagons, do not put the foot over the rail. Beware of the uncovered sleeper. Cattle yards are a constant source of danger as the loading flaps and races foul the line if they are not replaced after use. Always examine the yards before you shunt them. Many accidents have occurred through the loading flaps and races being left foul. In some electrified yards, the power is cut off the overhead when not in use. The power must be turned on before taking an electric locomotive in. Always see that the power is turned off when shunting is completed. A drover or other person who mounts the truck during loading operations might contact the overhead lines. A high-sided wagon next to an overhanging load of timber could cause a derailment on a curve. Always choose a low-sided wagon to run overhanging timber. Watch clearances carefully when shunting insulated and box wagons. Although there may be sufficient clearance at headstock level, the cant on the diverging road may throw the wagons over sufficiently to cause contact at the top. Insulated wagons project further over the buffers than other wagons, and when rounding curves, their inner edges come very close together. A shunter riding between 2 insulated wagons should always watch this. On no account should the knee be placed against the adjoining wagon. When a wagon has been derailed, it must not be placed back in traffic until it has been examined by a train examiner. Mark it not to run. Although it may look intact, the bearing brasses may have been displaced and the axle bent. Both make the wagon unsafe. Only the car and wagon staff are competent to say that a wagon is fit to run. Three short blasts of the whistle repeated means apply brakes. In a shunting yard, the signal should call everybody within hearing to the alert. The members of a shunting gang should always be on the alert to ensure the safety of one another. If one should disappear unexpectedly, stop the movement immediately by giving the danger stop signal. And so we have told you some of the do's and don'ts of shunting. Much has been left out that might well have been included, but we trust enough has been said and demonstrated to teach this one great lesson, that shunting demands constant care and vigilance. As we said earlier, every action of the shunter must be governed by the principles of safety first.